Greetings everywhere. Let me know how the audio is on this thing. It seems to be different every time. Welcome, Augies Worldwide. To answer a question, I've been spelling it Oggies. And it is a Cornish pastry, too. But that's not the point. Followers of OG. Hello to everyone out there, and thank you for your very, very kind words about my father and his health issues. I went over last week to Salt Lake City, which is about a 6-hour drive from here, and was able to spend some time with him this past weekend. He is a World War II veteran from the South Pacific, and was in the Navy there, fought in the South Pacific. He was a quartermaster, and apparently he was the one, I guess, who actually had hands on the wheel of the ship. He also was in charge of a landing craft for a while. He, I think, had a very interesting time. He used to tell us a few stories when we were kids. Of course, the major things he never talks about. These guys don't. He is 94 years old in very poor health. And although I got a note from a couple of my sisters who live in the Salt Lake area that he has improved in the last few days. So I really appreciate your help. I also went into the service, but when you're that age, you want to do different things differently from the way your old man did them. So I went into the Air Force rather than the Navy. I was in 4 years. So nice to hear from everybody. I see all of these familiar names from all over the world. Asked me to turn up the output volume. All right, let's see. Okay, I turned that up a little bit. The problem is that the computer makes the audio from this Fi-Fi microphone, this thing here, runs through several different filters on the computer, and in the course of normal operation, they get changed. So if it's otherwise okay, we're good. All right. Greetings from Austria. Let's see. Bob says he's a Navy vet too. We'll hope that the audio is okay. It's not going up into the red, so I'm guessing it's okay, but it's still probably minus 10 dB, so you may be having to turn it up a little bit to hear it. It's easy to do the audio for a video because I can look at the entire audio in Audacity for the entire video at once, and I can make adjustments that bring it up or down, level it out, and so on, make it a little bit better. Lompoc, California. I've even been there. I used to live in Simi Valley. British Columbia is beautiful. I hope that you're getting enough rain this year. I was up there in the area a few years ago, and it was a bit of a drought, and some people up in that area actually rely on rainfall for their drinking water, and they were having trouble getting fresh water. Okay, so the news on this end, I will not be attending Pacificon this year. It just isn't going to work out. We tried to get travel arrangements and things like that settled, and we were going to drive out in the trailer. I thought there was a KOA that was near Pacificon, about 4 miles down the road, and that may have been true 6 months ago, but it is certainly no longer true today. And the nearest campsites are in things like county parks and stuff like that that don't have any guarantees of reservations or that sort of thing. And the nearest KOA is quite a way. It's nice to take the camper because, not the camper, technically, travel trailer. Because then my wife and I have everything that we need right there, and we really enjoy going to these places together. We recently got Augies, Oggies. Let's see. Let me try and get this mic up a little bit more. Okay. I have found with this mic that it is easy to have issues with the level. Windows made a change to their audio system, and now it's a royal pain to change levels. You can't go in and just see all your devices. It's just crazy the way they do it. Sunny California, Worcester, Mass. Been there too. I attended a U2 concert there many years ago. Okay, we have, as you might suspect from the hiatus, many questions that have been lined up. I missed it last week because of going to visit Dad, and the week before because of the Duke City Ham Fest. Apparently, Duke City is a local name people use for Albuquerque. And I was a little confused by that. I had to ask, but there's lots of stuff there named Duke City. So I used to think it was a section of town, but apparently there was a Spanish duke at one time who was given the place as a land grant or something like that. And so the name sticks, Duke City, because there was some Spanish duke who did it. But I guess it's easier to spell Duke City than Albuquerque. Yeah, Microsoft does love to change things, and for no good reason. In my humble opinion, and you all know how humble my opinions are, they reached their peak with Windows 7 with that interface. It was a beautiful interface, very easy to use, and they've gone downhill ever since. But be that as it may, we're all living with Windows 10 or with Mac. Mac's going through its own changes all the time. Okay, I put out a video, let's see, on Wednesday that was actually my talk at the Duke City Ham Fest on YouTubing. The previous week I put out a talk that I gave at the Ham Fest on SWR, where it's called Fun with SWR. I hope you enjoyed those videos. And I also put out a recent video, number 223, about the upcoming videos. I've got a big, long list of upcoming videos. I've got a Geiger counter. I had hoped to do some this past week, but I've been down with a cold, and so is it worth getting a ham license today or just stick with CB? Yeah, go ahead and get your ham license. You know, you can always do both if you want. I'm one of the people who, as a youth in the 1960s, did some CB, and then I graduated up to ham radio. Yes, Ballon video, good. Yes, oh, speaking of Ballons, I got one. Oh, what did I do with it? Here it is. It's in the MFJ bag. This is a choke Ballon, and 50 ohm unbalanced, so it's technically an un, but in reality it's a choke Ballon. And what I'm going to do with that is try that with the dipole that I have. I put that dipole up there. I did a video about it, 2 videos I think, and it works great. There is a little bit of an RFI issue with it, and several people objected to my not putting a Ballon in. So I thought I'd get a little choke Ballon, which I did. I ordered it from ham radio outlets using channel funds, and so I will put that in place very soon and make a video about that. As I said, I've had a cold all week. I finally went to the doctor yesterday, and given my lung issues, they went ahead and gave me some antibiotics, and I feel better already after having done that. Let's see, right-click speaker, sound settings, right-click speaker. Okay, sound settings. Okay. Which gives me the sound control panel. choose your input, and we're doing the Fifine microphone. And okay, test your device properties. Volume, it's up about 70. I notice that as I talk on that, now I go back to settings, and it's going up a little bit more. Let's see what it's doing down on the OBS control panel. Seems to be going up a little bit more. Manage sound devices. Fifine microphone. You double click on it, nothing happens. So I don't know what I'm doing to manage it. This is so different from what it was before. But thank you, Mr. Super Whack-A-Mole. It unfortunately doesn't bring up the old window. It's got something new. Hello, Bahrain. I think this is the first time I've had someone sign on from the Gulf area. Now I'm plenty loud, got louder. That was better sound level, louder now. Okay, good. We will take that. We'll accept that. All right, let's get down to business. Needless to say, 3 weeks accumulation worth of questions means I have, excuse me, I still have a very sore throat. And yes, I did get my flu shot. So this is just a plain old cold. It's a sugar-free cough drop. Okay, here is one from Robert Eng. I'm guessing English is a second language. He wants to get into DMR radios, but says that DMR repeaters are few and far between. That's not really the case. In more populated areas of the United States, east of the Mississippi and so on, you'll find DMR repeaters everywhere. And in the metro areas on the west of the Mississippi, you'll find ample DMR repeaters. They're really, I was talking with one of the fellows at Bridgecom Systems who sells repeaters, Bridgecom is, and they sell far more DMR repeaters than they do D-Star or System Fusion, or for that matter, I guess they sell mostly FM, but they're getting a lot of DMR. How do you access a DMR repeater if you do not have a line of sight to them? Well, there are more going in all the time. Like I said, we got the one up in Grand Junction. In theory, we have one over on Log Hill, which is just across the canyon from here. But I've not been able to access it yet. And I've tried to get a hold of the owner and have not received a response. I'm looking for the correct box here. I have the solution to your problem is right here. This is called a hotspot. This one comes from Next Gen. I call it the San Diego hotspot because that is where it's made. And this is a hotspot. You connect it. It's built on a Raspberry Pi. You connect it here to the internet. You can do wireless if you want. Wired might be more secure. Just wire to your, oh my goodness. It's the router where your system comes in for your wire or your internet. And you don't have to use all the connectors. You just put an antenna on it, and then you can, they come pre-set up. All you have to do is plug and play. You contact this company called NextGen, NEX-GEN. Yeah, let me see if I can get you a URL out of this packet of information. NextGen hotspots. Why can't I get a... Yeah, I'll get the URL for that. I'll be doing a video on that very shortly, on this particular one. I also have a hotspot from OpenSpot. The OpenSpot hotspots have received a little flack because their software is not open source. Frankly, I think it's up to the author to make it open source, but some people get real emotional on that subject. But the little hotspot allows you to use your DMR radio with the hotspot. You can get on any one of the talk groups by doing that and have conversations all over the world. I know the next step, and it's only a tiny one, is putting a microphone right on the hotspot, skipping the radio part, but it is just for amateur radio operators. And if there are people who are listening in other countries, it's going out over repeaters. It's going out repeaters, so there may yet be amateur radio in the whole thing. Mark Pearson passed his Canadian honors with 91 correct out of 100. Same privileges as a U.S. general. Thanks for the inspiration. Best wishes for Dad. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. And also the funding of Canadian $20. Okay, that should answer that question. Am I putting these on the right pile? No. Okay, this next one from Don, N5SKT, is having trouble with an antenna. He doesn't tell me what the antenna is, so I'm going to assume it's something simple like a dipole or a homebrew vertical. When I get an SWR dip on an antenna, but the dip is high, 2 to 1 or higher, where do I look to make adjustments? I can no longer lengthen or shorten the wire because I have reached the lowest SWR I can with that method. And by the way, I've encountered this with both verticals and dipoles of the hamstick type. Are there a set of factors that can be checked to establish what the issue is? In one case, I know it was close to metal objects, and moving away helped. Okay, so let's assume it's a dipole. If it's the hamstick one, like the octopus antenna, make sure that both sides of the antenna are identical in length, because if the feed point gets off center, the impedance will go up. And if the resistive part of the impedance is 100 ohms, say, because the thing is not being fed in the center, you'll get an SWR 2 to 1 right out of the box. So if it's the lowest SWR point, it means that you've got your reactance, capacitive and inductive reactance, in the best balance you can. But there's another factor that's causing the feed point impedance to be other than 50 ohms. So take a look at make sure that both legs of the dipole are the same length. If the antenna is too low to the ground, like you're doing an 80-meter antenna, and you're only 20 feet off the ground, you're going to get a low feed point impedance, 30 ohms, something like that. A 25 ohm impedance, even if it's balanced, everything's perfectly balanced, is still going to give you a 2 to 1 SWR. What I would do, if this is the best you can do, which may very well be the case, everything affects everything on the antennas, I would suggest just putting a tuner in there and letting the tuner pick up the rest of it. If it is 2 to 1, just use the tuner that comes with your radio, assuming you have one in the radio, and it should match it up just fine. Otherwise, you can get an antenna tuner like the MFJ, what is it, 993B? That's what I have. I don't use it now because my antennas are all tuned. Plus, it's not a high-power tuner, and so when I use my 500-watt linear, I can't use that when I need antennas that are in tune. Now, he has one other question, What do I think of the Moxon antennas? Actually, Moxons are becoming very popular. Again, they are an old antenna design. Nasty cold. Had it for days. It came down with a sore throat on Monday. I think I picked it up at the old folks' home. And Wayne Opp points out that he's just passed his extra exam. And congratulations to you. Good job, Wayne. Yeah, passed his exam. Cool. Yeah, the Moxon is receiving a kind of a fad. You know, lots of antennas are fad antennas. And that doesn't mean they're bad antennas. They're not bad antennas. They just become popular for whatever reason. So, okay, this is from Jeff Lynch, N2NJL. He has experience in aviation and aviation regulation, which made me immediately want to ask him if there's some way I can get my private pilot's license. I am bipolar, and it's extremely well controlled, but what I've read on the FAA website, they don't like bipolar people flying airplanes. And I'd like to get my private pilot license, and there's no point in even trying if the FAA is just going to say no. So maybe you know, Jeff, about how that works, and if there's some way I can do that. The problem with bipolar is that there was that German idiot who was flying that German airline from Austria, I think, and he was the co-pilot, and he managed to overpower the control inputs put in by the pilot and slam the airplane into a mountainside. And yes, there's a very high suicide rate among bipolar people. It's about 10% of all people who are bipolar will eventually commit suicide. It's one reason I don't keep any weapons in the house. It's not that I might hurt somebody else. I wouldn't, but I might hurt myself. So I don't keep any weapons in the house. No guns, no big hunting knives, no anything like that. But anyway, because of that, it's given mentally ill people a really, really bad stigma with the FAA. And if they're not going to give me a license, period, I'm not even going to try. It's on my bucket list. Ever since I was in the Air Force, I wanted to learn how to fly. I haven't looked at the questions that we've got in here. Okay, let's see if we can find his question here. 2 clubs, a little standoffish. Yes, it often takes time to integrate yourself into a club. It can take 6 months. What I'd suggest is continue attending, and at the break, there's usually a break halfway through, before or after the program, just chat with people. And if you might try more clubs to do that and get to know members in the club, get to know them on the air a little bit too. Let's see, he enjoys my videos, and he used my videos to advance to general. Okay, well, yes, I do recommend that people get on the air as a general for a couple of years, and then that extra license will be so much more meaningful. Recently bought a TS-820. Interested in Ragchew. He's got a 6 BTV antenna. He says he lives close to the Canadian border, and he visits Canada regularly. Recently, a friend in Canada asked me to try to check them out on a frequency on RCW general allocation, which I did not do because it was not in my authorization. That is true. In the United States, it's CW up to 7125. In other countries, a lot of countries do not have any 40-meter privileges above 7.2. We have up to 7.3. So he wants to reply to somebody and at 70 kilohertz, which may be in part of their voice allocation. Can he reply with CW? Yes. Somebody calls him on voice, he can reply with CW if it's the person he's talking to, like Canadian or somebody else. Yes. Can you respond with voice? No. Just no. You need to pick a different frequency. And yes, this is a matter of law. Can you do CW in any portion of the band? Yes, but it is not amateur best practice. CW is always usable across the entire band, but it's amateur best practice to use it in the normal slots for its use. The high frequency privileges chart he is talking about is this one, which is available from the ARRL. Just look for band chart. Okay, and it says up here, CW operation is permitted throughout all amateur bands. Okay, but if you come across CW in the general phone band, it's not amateur best practice to do that. I mean, you can do it, but it's just not amateur best practice. Okay, this one is from Todd N6WTJ. Thanks very much for your videos. 3 acres of property, and I'm looking to put up a 160 meter full wavelength horizontal loop to work 160 and 40. You can operate on all amateur bands up to 10 meters on that antenna. I've read articles and so on. Some people have said if you have room, put up 2 wavelengths. Nah, you don't need to do that. It's not going to help you any. Give you a weird pattern, that's for sure. He has a Roan 40-foot tower for his Yagi and 4 50-foot poles. A good deal on the poles. I can only get mine up 20 feet. Is it worth to install 2 wavelengths? I personally don't think so. Do a wavelength. Do it for the absolute lowest frequency you're going to use it for. So in this case, 1.8 megahertz. Yes, it's a cloud burner. It means on 80 or on 160 and to some degree on 80, most of the radiation is going to go up. That's the perfect situation for an NVIS antenna. NVIS will work on 160, more commonly on 80, and during the day, more commonly on 40. I had an antenna. It was an 80 meter full wavelength horizontal loop. That was my primary antenna for quite a while, till I went to the vertical, which is now defunct, and I am awaiting a vertical from Step IR. It'll be the big IR vertical. We came to an accommodation. I paid some money, and then they're sending the rest. I paid about a third. They paid 2/3, and they're sending it here. And I'm going to do some videos and reviews and things like that on it. Normally, I ask people if they want me to review something, send it to me. But they choked at the $3,000, so I choked on it too. So we kindly got to the point where there was minimal choking on each side. Okay, this is from Richard Lynn. He is a friend in the local club, offering to loan me an Icom 5100A that will work on D-Star. So I'll have to look into D-Star repeaters in the area. And so thank you, Richard. I'm going to put that aside. He's a local club member here. I'm going to take, it's 1:30. I'm going to go back and look in here for questions. People from all over the world. This is just cool. Bob Crawford sent me an email on an issue he's having on 40 meters. I will look for that. Club had VE testing today, and there were 10 VEs and 1 upgrade and 1 new ham. Well, that's good that they're coming out. That's great. From South Africa here. Chili Philly. From from Germany. Maybe that, let's see. Another Zoomie here. Air Force. Oggies, Oggies, yes. VJ from sunny California. The blue snowball microphones work well. I have I seem to be collecting microphones here. I was just sent this Tonor. It's 2 wireless mics, the handheld type, with a receiver for both and a mixer, or you could use the 2 separately. And that's going to be an upcoming video. So worth getting a ham license today? Yes. We're at San Diego Hamfest in Lakeside. Good. California QSO party this weekend on HF. Try that. If you've never tried contesting, the California QSO party is very, very active. You'll hear lots and lots and lots of people on the air. Okay. Yes, they do. I said my lips and nose look a little cyanotic. I am been struggling with this cold. Usually I get something that lasts a couple days and that's it. But this one's been a classic cold. Okay, any Bay Area club I can recommend that's the Bay Area in California. VJ, I would suggest going to the ARRL page and in their search bar put Club Finder, and there will be, I would imagine, dozens of ham radio clubs in the area stretching away from, let's see, you're in the Bay Area. Well, Bay Area is huge, but there are lots of them. And yeah, try using Classic Shell. That's true. Greetings from the Oregon coast. I don't see questions. Usually their hotspots are effectively VoIP, aren't they? Voice over IP. Oh, I suppose. We don't normally call that, we call it digital voice. Voice over IP is an entire set of protocol for doing phone lines, setting up virtual channels and things like that. And Wayne just passed his extra. Good deal. MFJ Versatuner 2 is good for barefoot. Yeah. My very first MFJ product was a small tuner. They take niacin. I'll have to give it a try. Opinions about the ABREE antennas, I have not, I'm not familiar with those. Yeah, they won't let you paste a website into the chat. You can do it by putting the name and then putting space and in parentheses dot, and then after that we'll assume com. Have they fixed the stability issue with the 9700? I did not know there was one. Neil Marsh, there may be a big difference in policy between private pilot. Private pilot needs a class 3 FAA medical. There's a guy in town who gives them. I'm going to pose the question to him. I was reading on the FAA webpage a great deal last night, and the net impression was that anything could be waived. However, every time they talked about bipolar, they indicated no. So, commercial with an air transport needs a class 1 medical. I can fly without a class 3 medical, but only as a sport pilot, which means only within 50 kilometers of my own airport. That's no fun. I want to go to Hamfest in an airplane. Quarter wave at the lowest dipole frequency, but don't worry if you cannot get it that high. True. Have them run split. Yes, you can do that too. Absolutely. If you're, in Canada and you want to use a frequency that's in your phone band but not ours, then you can listen in our phone band. that works fine. What bands in the fan dipole? Let's see. Build the loop for under the 160 meter band, like 590 feet, and then it won't be crazy impedance on other bands. Feed it, by the way, with ladder line. Don't try feeding it with coax. I would not recommend trying to put a 4-to-1 balun up there. I did on mine. The problem is that the impedance is just all over the place. And you're going to need to put a high-range tuner on that thing. Okay. Have you ever made a video on my MFJ259 analyzer? I don't think I have. That's an interesting idea. It's a perfectly good analyzer. It's still widely available. I've done on the little German unit and on the Rig Expert. On the Rig Expert, they all work fine. What do I think about vertical fan dipoles? Well, you could try it. I mean, they should work the same way as others. What a lot of people will do is put up a vertical for their lowest band and then put a tuner there. MFJ and Yaesu both make a tuner that you can put at the base of a vertical antenna to tune it on other bands. That way you don't have any feed line between the tuner and the antenna to dissipate lots of power. And you can get very, very wide tuning capability with those things. The 43-foot vertical has undergone a vogue that's sort of come and gone. The problem with the 43-foot vertical is really not all that good on higher bands, 20 and up, and it requires just radials galore. You practically have to cover the ground with copper in order to get that thing to work. Okay, need tall trees. Yes, I do too. Ham Radio 1. HAMRADIO, the number 1.com/rugged. Okay, that will work. By the way, if you leave out the ham radio, if you leave out the 1 and just hamradio.com, you get ham radio outlet. And I foresee a future where they start complaining about this URL that is so similar to their URL. Okay, very good. Would love to see the video on the MFJ analyzer. I'll have to do that. It's an old workhorse of a tool. Okay. I really, really enjoy these live streams. It's so nice to interact with people over this. Of course, these get a lot more views afterwards. One thing that has been suggested to me is that I put some sort of a list at the bottom with times for the different topics I cover. I am hiring a new assistant. The new assistant starts on Monday. I was going to have her come yesterday, but I had a cold. I was going to interview her yesterday. She'll be starting on Monday. She's a second-year student in graphic design and that sort of thing. So that would fit right into the video type of stuff. So I'm going to have her act as the producer for the upcoming general videos, the updated general videos. See if we can't get that. Most people are switching to Rig Expert and analyzers. They are very nice analyzers. Wow, your wife loves you. Rig Expert for your birthday. That's great. Everybody else can make that suggestion too, I suppose. Of course, drop a model number and a URL. Here is from KC3NBN. Mona Naliznik, I think, if I'm reading the email address correctly, just says, keep up the good work, enjoys the videos, and bless my father and wish him or thank him for his service. Yeah, he is, in my mind, a hero. Now, this one is from Brad Rich, and he is moving to New Mexico, and I've got his 7610 here, and he wants to do some video on the ground system he's building, and he has a Nikon DSLR, but it has a mic input. He also has a camcorder, much like I was using it at the Duke City Hamfest. Not sure which camera to use. If you do use the Nikon, pre-focus it. If you use automatic focus, it constantly hunts for the right focus. The little camcorder shouldn't hunt so much for focus. Now, he asks about a microphone to use. This right here is my first good microphone. It's a little lavalier, so it attaches right up here. Okay. This one has a 20-foot cord. It has a little battery thing, because this is a condenser mic, so it has to have a battery to give it its charge. And it is the Audio Technica ATR 3350. Audio Technica ATR 3350. If you want to write that down. Now, the thing about the microphone is it's cold, which means it doesn't put out as much level as the other, so you always very sure of getting full quality. You will have to adjust the volume of the audio, the amount of audio gain in the camera. You don't want to, cold audio you can fix in post-production. Hot audio, no. It is possible to do some things, but it gets clipped, and that clipping introduces terrible distortion. So you're going to have to spend some time. I spent hours getting the right levels for this thing. I record everything at about minus 12 dB. And I don't use this microphone anymore. This microphone's only about $25. It's a very, very good microphone. You get this at BH Photo Video. Bravo Hotel Photo Video. Today is their Sabbath. This is a New York outfit. So the website is up, but their ordering won't be active again until the Jewish Sabbath ends at midnight, or at sundown New York time. But look it up. If you want to go with a wireless mic package, look at the Rode, R-O-D-E, video mic, and it's about $400. And the Sennheisers start around $600 for wireless lavaliers. Hope that answers your question there, and I'm looking forward to putting that 7610 in. It would have been in this week had I felt better. Sorry about that. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed. Late to the party from Nebraska. My wife was born in Stratton, Nebraska, down in the bottom, not out in the panhandle, but down in the bottom to the west. There aren't many towns to the west. There's Ray, Colorado, and then there's Benkelman, Nebraska. It's pretty sparsely populated out there. And with the failure quite a number of years ago of the Ogallala Aquifer, what was prime farm country out in that region, especially up further north, has all been abandoned. It's a shame. It's very nice country, but the water, there's no good natural way to refill that particular aquifer. It was filled millions of years ago, many millions of years ago. And, most aquifers, like in California and so on, are refilled by the rains. This one is not. So it's been mined out and depleted. Not there anymore. Yeah, this is from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. He sent it via my Ask Dave portal. Not portal. There's, if you go to ke0og.net/ask-dave, there's a form you can fill out. And he used that form. He needs some help protecting his radios from overvoltage. He participates in ARES type things, emergency response type things, brings his own radios in, and he is concerned about the quality of the power he plugs in. You know, he's got the Anderson power pole connectors like everybody else uses, but he wants some sort of a power conditioner to protect his radio from overvoltage and things like that. I am not familiar with one. He proposes a 15-volt Zener diode. If you do the 15-volt Zener diode in the proper direction, you can put a fuse between it and the power source, and then if the Zener starts to draw current, it'll pop the fuse, which will protect the radio. But if you're going into what the Navy would call battle short conditions, you want the thing to actually respond and condition the power. There is a device made by MFJ, formerly by TG Electronics, by N8XJK, but he passed away, so we just have MFJ making it. But it only conditions on the low end, not on the high end. It'll let the high through. So if I were you, I'd do some kind of search on the internet. I don't know of any power conditioner, but your Zener diode idea sounds good, but put a fuse in there. So if the Zener does conduct, like you get 15-volt Zener, put that in there, and if it does conduct, put a fuse in there so that it will pop that fuse and protect your radio. That's a perfectly viable way of doing it. What would be nice is if you have a DC to DC converter that if the voltage goes up too high, it'll just convert it down to what you actually need. Thank you, Optical Man 1 Jeff. He has just dropped a little in the pot. I appreciate that very much. What software do you use in post-production? What camera do you use on your live streams? In post-production, I use CyberLink Power Director. CyberLink, just like you might imagine, it's cyberlink, all one word.com. Will take you there, and I use the Director 365 version, which is their subscription version, where you get basically the whole 9 yards. I've been with them for about 10 years. I am a CyberLink Most Valuable Professional, MVP. But that does mean that I get free software every year, which I just recently got an upgrade to the new. They just came out with Power Director. I think it's 19. It's got, well, since I'm going to be reviewing it, I printed the manual. It's 18, not 19. CyberLink Power Director User Guide. Do you see how thick that is? That's over an inch of paper. Okay, 518 pages. This is printed on both sides. It is a very capable editor. It's not Adobe Photoshop, nor does it try to be. It's not. They don't try to make Hollywood movies with this thing. But I've been able eventually to figure out how to do everything I have wanted to do with this thing, and it's a good piece of software. It's $150 or something like that a year, worth every penny. Now, being with all that capability, the question is, well, my goodness, what am I stepping into? It's like instead of stepping into the cockpit of a Cessna 152, which is one of the easiest airplanes to fly, still very complicated for me, okay, versus sitting in the left seat in a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. I mean, good grief. The difference is just vast. Of course, the 787 is probably easier to fly because it's all computerized. They'll actually do computerized landings these days. And I started taking a little aircraft training when I was in the Air Force. I went into radar, but I figured if I was in the Air Force, I should know how to fly. Well, I didn't work out. I had a flight instructor who really looked down on me and made it clear that he didn't think I was worthy of his attention. And I decided to stick with ham radio because I was also very involved in the Keesler Air Force Base Ham Radio Club during my 8 months of training there. And they were extremely welcoming, extremely. Whereas the flight club was very standoffish. So that has nothing to do with flying. It has everything to do with the people. But I stuck with ham radio. I should have gone ahead and gotten my license, but then I probably would have found out sooner I'm bipolar. Been bipolar all my life. It wasn't discovered properly until the year 2001, so 18 years ago. And it took 7 years to find the right medication. It was a rough 7 years. But it answered so many questions for me about why I was the way I was. And it turned out to be good because in IBM, they valued me for what I could do, not what I couldn't do. And as a bipolar person, I think differently from the way other people think. I mean, if I thought like everybody else, I wouldn't be bipolar, right? So I would see things on contracts and designs and stuff like that nobody else would see. And as a result of that, I saved contracts. I helped win contracts. And so they were quite happy to put up with the downside of being bipolar, even when I didn't have the medication done right. And they had no problem with my going into the hospital to get it right. Since I did that, they got me on the right medication. It has been so much easier, but I have been very clear with the psychiatrist who manages my medication. Don't take that little spark of creativity away from me, because some medications do. It says, I need that. That's my value add in life. I can see things other people don't see and then help explain them. I think that might help explain why I do videos the way I do, because I think I come at it from a different direction and try and put myself inside the student or inside the viewer. And so far it's working. So, yes, CyberLink Power Director. What are the concepts behind the use of ladder line, 50 ohm coaxial feed line? In which situation what will be used or indicated, multiband, fan dipole, or vertical? Well, a vertical is by nature an unbalanced antenna and likes to see an unbalanced feed line. However, a full-size vertical on the ground with sufficient radials has a input impedance of about 30 ohms. So unless you do something to change that impedance, you're going to have an SWR of 1.6 to 1, something like that. You can put a tuner right there at the bottom of the vertical. Most verticals do have some base loading to fix the SWR. Now, dipoles are inherently balanced devices. The midpoint impedance at the height most hams put them up runs anywhere from 30 to 70 ohms. So 50, like I put up my dipole, it's only 20 feet off the ground, so I get 1.6 to 1 SWR. which means the actual feed point impedance is probably closer to 30 than 50, which is fine. Now, ladder line being a high impedance line means the current in the line, the actual current, is low. And so you get fewer ohmic losses. And so you can run ladder line for longer distances since it's more voltage driven. The kind of coax we've been using since World War II, where it was really first seen in a big way in radio, was 50 ohm. It's been 50 ohm ever since in radio. You can get 75 ohm coax from Home Depot for a fraction, a tiny fraction of the price of good 50 ohm coax. And a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people, but one of these days I've said I'm going to go down and get some of that, hook it up to my dipole and see what happens, because it's so much less expensive, because they produce it in huge amounts. So anyway, if you've got a feed line of any length, or if you've got mismatches that might result in feed line losses, you'll want to go with the ladder line. And you can actually make your own ladder line if you want, with wire and some little plastic or wood spacers or something like that. I know somebody who did that. I could do a video on that and do a bit more. But the 50 ohm coax with a 1-to-1 balun or a choke balun or something like that, or just looping several pieces of coax together right there at the feed line will do it too. Is there a way to check your coax and antenna tuning without using an antenna tuner? Yes, absolutely. Just use an SWR meter and keep tuning it till you get the best SWR. Most radios these days have SWR meters built in. They're not always very accurate, but they are built in. Love your live streams and videos. Which do you like better for an 8-band vertical, the R9 or the AV680? Both of those, well, they're both made by MFJ, but by High Gain and Cushcraft, which operate kind of independently. I had an R7 and loved it. Or R5, rather. I had an R5 and loved it. The R9 will do only a few, the R9 and AV680 both, will only do a few kilohertz on 80 meters. In my mind, it's mildly disingenuous that they advertise 80 meters, because they do not mean that they cover very much of the band. Instead of a half a megahertz of bandwidth, they cover maybe 25 kilohertz. I mean, it's just a little fraction. You have to tune it to the part of the band you use, but of course, if you haven't been active on 80, you don't know what part of the band to tune it to. So tune it somewhere in the middle. If you're going to do FT8 or something like that, tune it for that. User comments say that both are difficult to build and install. Not really. They're a pain, meaning that you've got, I think in the case of the AV680, a couple hundred parts to assemble. The antennas come as kits. I mean, no two connectors are connected together. They are not partially disassembled for shipment. They are entirely disassembled for shipment. Okay. But you can build them. I've done that kind of thing. Better than the cockpit of a 737 MAX. Yeah. There is a channel called Blanco Lirio. Blanco, L-I-R-I-O. Blanco Lirio. He is I think a first officer right at the moment on one of the big air transport aircraft. Right now he's off on a medical hiatus because of prostate cancer issues, but he does extremely detailed descriptions of aviation incidents and has done numerous videos about the 737 MAX, and I highly recommend that you go take a look at that. He is very forthright and extremely knowledgeable. and not just as a pilot, but as an engineer. So you are not bipolar. I have bipolar. I actually disagree with that. Yes, I would have a headache. I'm not a headache, but bipolar illness kind of undergirds and overarches who I am, what I am, why I do what I do, and so on. It's like being a Mormon. I'm not just a member of the Mormon church, I am a Mormon. You know, a lot of people don't say that, well, I'm a member of a Christian church. They say, I am a Christian. It's one of those things that's just so deeply imbued in me that I identify with it. I own it. That's the thing about being bipolar. It's not curable. You're never cured. And if you think you're feeling great and you don't need to take your medication, you're wrong. You need to take your medications because it's something that is lifelong. It's not going away. And what I did when I found out I was bipolar was I decided, okay, finally I've got a diagnosis. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I am going to own this. I'm going to learn everything I can about it. I'm going to take my medications. I'm going to see the professionals. I'm going to get the therapy. And I'm going to change my life to get rid of the stress that was causing a lot of the issues. That's one of the reasons we moved down here to this part of the state, so we don't have the stress of the big city. And I own it. And it's mine. It's my disease. I won't necessarily say I'm proud of it, but I am bipolar. And I have a nasty cold. So the cold I would like to go away. I recognize that the bipolar never will. Volume improved, good. From a bipolar person, we think very differently. Here in the UK, we have restrictions on flying, driving, and firearm licenses. Driving, they didn't give me any restrictions. Interestingly, when I was, oh gosh, we're over time. I'll wrap up here. When I was working in industry, I had a security clearance. And when the bipolar thing came up, you know, they're very concerned that a bipolar person, gosh, I'm going to go spill my guts to the Chinese or something. And they actually sent an investigator to interview my psychiatrist. They actually sent someone to interview my psychiatrist. And I kept my clearance. I kept my clearance all the way to the time I drive. And of course, I would never, I don't think that if I were to try to get a clearance for a firearm, I'd probably go through fine because I have no record. But I wouldn't get one anyway. I don't know it. Peter Bates, thank you very much for that. Question, can I run an end-fed wire antenna around the house with the eaves totally be bent 2 times as it goes around? Yes, absolutely, you can do that. The further away you can get it from the eaves, the better, like 10-inch standoff or something like that. That would work well. And run all my antennas post-tuner with 75 ohm coax. Good. Yes. Julian and all the tech licensing videos, and I was gone. No. Julian introduced the updated videos. It's kind of one of the marks of the updated technician videos as Julian starts them off. By the way, he's moved to Georgia. Mag loops are really not efficient. They try very hard to make them efficient. Mag loop compared to dipole, they both work well. A mag loop will work maybe half as well as a dipole, 3 dB down, something like that. They can do amazing things, but they have to be very, very well tuned. So thank you for your time today. Well, we didn't get through very many questions, and there's a lot more online for that. I love you guys. I love doing this YouTube thing. Thank you, Augies. If you're not an Augie, meaning you're not a subscriber, please go ahead and subscribe. You can do that right on the page for this video. Please like the video. If you would like to support, besides the chat feature here, what do they call it? They've got a name for it. Well, it's something. I'm not thinking well today with my cold, sorry. I wouldn't be flying today. And thank you all very much for your time. You can go to D. Castler, or Dave Castler, dcastler.com, C-A-S-L-E-R, no T, .com/support. And there's a page right there that shows all the different methods to where you can provide financial support for the channel. It's not a contribution. I'm not a charity. Okay, I pay taxes on all that. I pay taxes on everything. I'm very careful to keep track of everything that comes through. Thank you for your time, and I will see you next week, and in between, I hope to get like 2 videos out this coming week, and I will introduce you to my new assistant. So until we next meet, 73.